Amitabh and Anita, they do the Zoom each week, and they are part of the Indian Film Festival of Cincinnati. So
okay, all right, okay. I hope I can answer the questions. I don't know what they're going to ask.
very simple questions. We'll just let you talk, right?
Is Priyanka on also?
Yes, Priyanka is here right now. Priyanka, you want to say hello to?
Yeah, hi Bharti ma'am.
Hi Priyanka, how are you?
Good.
Good. Are you ready to answer the questions? I don't know what they will ask.
I hope you all remember the film.
We cannot forget the film.
Yeah.
Hello, Bharti ma'am.
Ma'am Sudipta.
Your voice is breaking actually.
Okay.
Do you want to say that once again? Do you want to? That was Shrishti.
Shrishti, ma'am. Sudipta.
Sorry, Sudipta. Go ahead.
Shrishti?
No, Sudipta.
Sudipta, ma'am.
Sudipta. Hi, Sudipta. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you, ma'am. How are you?
Are you remembering my pot of gold or not? And the nice time we had?
Yeah. Lovely time we had. Like such a warm atmosphere it was there on the shoot. Yeah.
So yeah, that is true. We had a good time rehearsing with Priyanka in the director's seat, bullying us all the time.
Bullying you guys. So let's.
Yeah, it's nice.
We'll start the session. It's 11:34. Okay. So let's go ahead and start the session. Welcome to Hang Out with the Creatives, organized by the Indian Film Festival of Cincinnati. We are now in our 7th week of the at-home series. We hope you're all doing very well. I know this has been a very difficult time, especially for those in Bombay, in Mumbai, and in India. My name is Rati Apana. I'm the founder and executive director of the Indian Film Festival of Cincinnati. This year, we had to postpone our annual festival because of COVID. But then we wanted to still keep our patrons engaged during this pandemic, especially when folks are alone, locked up in their own homes. So we decided we'd curate a film or two each week, and then have a Zoom session with the directors and the cast every weekend. And so really our idea with Hang Out with the Creatives is to get the story behind the story, right? So I'm just gonna set the protocol for today's Zoom session. I want to start by thanking Anita Rathuri and Amit Rathuri for setting up the Zoom and for promoting the festival. I also want to thank Leena Gandhi and Anu Mitra for doing the same. Today, what we'll do is we'll be interviewing the director and cast, and then I'll turn over the questions to the audience. So the audience can now ask your questions. All I ask is that before you ask a question, just introduce yourself, kind of wave your hand so Amit knows who to zoom in on, and then we can proceed from there. All right. Okay. So folks, it gives me great pleasure today to welcome writer-director Priyanka Tanwar, actor Bharati Jaffrey, actress Sudipta, and actor Shrishti Vrindani today to our show. Hope all of you have enjoyed watching this warm and humorous story. When we first chose, when we got this film submission, it so turned out that all three judges had zeroed in on the film, and we realized that it had touched a chord with all of us. And so I'm sure the audience felt the same as they watched it. So my first question is for the director, Priyanka. Priyanka, I just want to introduce you to the audience. Priyanka has did several films at a very, very young age. Was this your debut film, Priyanka?
No, ma'am. This was my second film. The first film that I made was called Little Big George, and I made that in 2012. In fact, before that, when I just came out of film school, I made a film called Bon Anniversaire Ma Chérie, and I did that in 2010. But I came out of film school, so I thought I knew everything, and that was a disaster. And in 2012, I made a film called Little Big George, which is on YouTube. You can find it on YouTube. It's about
Yes.
it was actually my story about this small boy who loves to eat, and how he deals with obesity and his love for cooking. And
Yes.
then I used to live with my grandmother. I'm the only child. My parents were in jobs that they traveled all the time, and my grandmother looked after me. And I lost her in 2013, and that is what motivated me to make this film, because this film was about our lives. Even though I was an assistant director, 13, I've been in this field for 13 years. So I started off as an assistant director, and at that time I had the opportunity and the privilege, I guess, to look after my grandmother because my parents allowed me to do that. So I used to not AD, I used to look after my nanny. I used to call her nanny, and that's what Bharti ma'am's character was in the film. And when I lost her, I decided to make this film, and it came to me very naturally. Whatever you see is 90% real and 10% fiction. And as soon as I saw Bharti ma'am, I saw my grandmother in her, and I said, I have to make this film as a dedication to my grandmother. So this is my third film, actually, my third short film.
Yes, and in fact, you've submitted two of your films to our festival, and they both won awards in consecutive years.
Right.
Best film, but also for the best actress, and Bharati as well won some awards, won an award for it. So I just want to tell you about Priyanka. Her accolades, include awards from all around the world as well, including Moscow. And she's done something very interesting now during the COVID period. She's been producing these 2-minute films, and I watched them, and I was so delighted by them. And they're called Cash, Khichdi, and Work from Home. Just have a look at it. I'm happy to give you some links to it. Really delightful films, and I'm sure all your fans are really happy watching those films as well. You worked with Amir Khan in his production company. Am I right?
Yes.
So can you think back on a time that you spent there, and if there was one experience from your work there that you took to your job directing this film, what would that be?
The best thing that the first thing that comes to my mind was when I was all working with Amir Khan Productions for his show called Satyameva Jayate, which did 2 seasons, and it was a reality show. I got to work with Amir sir in very close quarters. In the first season, I was just a second assistant director, but in the second season, I got a chance to be first assistant director, and I was very scared because my temperament is not to be a first AD on set, because I am somebody who cannot command. I'm a better director than an assistant director. And I remember I was very scared when I went for my first meeting with Amir sir, and I was very worried. I said that, how am I'm just an assistant. I'm so much younger, and he looks at me as a younger filmmaker. So when I worked with him, when I went for that first meeting, the first thing he told me was, I put down some questions, and he looked at me and he said, so Priyanka, what do you think? As soon as he said that, what do you think? That's when I realized that, okay, I have to now command. I need to know, like, he's given me the authority, and he's a perfectionist. So he just asked me that, he just looked at me and said, Priyanka, okay, this is what do you think? And I was just a first assistant director. I didn't think that that my opinion would matter. But that's when I realized that if I have to direct a film eventually, I will have 50 people or 100 people working under me. And I need to know what I want, and I have to be confident in what I want. That's why when I go to set, I am always very prepared with my shots and the edit in my head, so that none of my crew members feel that the director ko kuch nahi aata hai, that the director does not know anything. So that was one experience that really taught me a lot, where I realized that I have to command, and he gave me full control. Like every time a job was done, he used to, Amir always said that great job, you all met the deadline. Because here, as you know, in film, time is everything. Time is money. So we have to make the day. If it goes beyond half an hour, there is a lot of money that is involved. So as an assistant director, your job is to meet the day. You can't go beyond your schedule. So that is what I learned as an assistant director with Amir Khan Productions.
Oh, lovely. So that really helped you. And you were just
Right.
telling us that this film was inspired by your own grandmother's life. And it's a fascinating story because most of us could relate to the different characters in the film as well. Was this for you a way to heal from the loss of your grandmother, making this?
Yes, yes, it was. It was because it was really difficult because she was my mother and my father. So it was, sorry, I might feel a little emotional, but uh, just a minute. Yeah. So she was my mother and my father. And when I lost her, it was a big void in my life. So it was a tribute to her. So I think by working with Bharati ma'am and Sudipta and Srishti, it gave me a chance to relive that time with her. In fact, every time I watch that film, it's very emotional, and I because it reminds me of my grandmother, and I always think of Bharti ma'am as my grandmother. So I always feel that's why I go meet her, like because she's somebody who reminds me of her. She's so much like her. In fact, Bharti ma'am's hands, it's very very funny, but Bharti ma'am has beautiful hands and beautiful nails which are always filed, and my grandmother always had beautiful hands and fine nails. In fact, when she passed away, and because my mom's Roman Catholic and my grandmother, I told my mother that before. When she was in a coffin, I said, we'll put, because she loved putting off-white nail polish. So I always thought that, maybe I'd do that for my grandmother, but unfortunately I could not. But so for me, it was a great healing process. Like I enjoyed myself with Bharti ma'am because she's such a senior actor, and I just got my first commercial film where I shot in London, and it was, I know the difference in working. I worked with the best Marathi stars in the Marathi film industry, and I know the difference. Like working with them, they were amazing. But Bharti ma'am, because she's so senior and has so much of experience, I saw the difference. I learned so much from her as an actor. The way she taught me, the way and she never said no. Lots of people, I have a very bad habit as a director. I keep Bharti ma'am will laugh, Sudipta will also laugh, that I always get a safe take, and I could get an okay take, but I also say, but one more for safety. So I always do that, and my Marathi actors in London used to get angry with me because we shot in -8, and they used to actually look at me and say, we are not giving you one more for safety. But Bharti ma'am always, even if I took 10 takes, she, Sudipta and Srishti always said, "Okay, you want one more, we'll give you one more for safety," even though they knew that the safety take was not an okay take. So it was a great experience. I enjoyed myself. I enjoyed working with them, and they did so many. I am a director who believes in a lot of rehearsals, and so does Bharti ma'am, Sudipta and Srishti. So we always rehearsed. I think we rehearsed for nearly a month, where we acted, and they knew everything. The only thing was we had to just take them and go to the location. That's all. So yeah, it was a great process, and I healed. I guess that void in my life got, it filled when I worked with them.
I'm sure your grandmother would have been very proud of you if she had seen
Yeah,
the.
yeah.
I want to talk to Bharti for a little while. Folks, I want to introduce to you Bharti Jaffrey. She's the beautiful and elegant award-winning actress. Bharti is known for her passion for acting. She entered films, as she told me, a little later in life, and she has done numerous films, popular TV series, and short films. And some of the titles are Hazar Charasi Ki Ma, Sans, Daman, Devia Hiliaba, Gift, and a German film called Marry Me. Thank you for being here, Bharti. Welcome. It's very special
Thank you
for
so
us
much.
to have you here
Thank you
with
so
us.
much for having me.
Thank you.
And thank
You were
you
so
so much.
gracious to join us. Bharti is also
Okay.
the oldest daughter of the great veteran actor Ashok Kumar, who himself was such a precious founding stalwart of Bollywood. Happy Father's Day, Bharti, to the great Ashok Kumar today.
Oh, yes.
I know
Thank
how
you.
much your dad means to you.
Yeah. So much. Thank you. Yes, I do. I
But
do. It means a lot to me. Yeah. We learn so much from our parents, which, father, especially father and mother and grandmother, as she says. And it's like, even though they are gone, their presence is living in all of
in all
us.
of us. So when Priyanka approached you with the script. What attracted you to the film? You played yes, and you played your role so
what
well.
attracted me was the fact that I thought Priyanka was very prepared and was not wavering, and she knew exactly what she wanted. You know, sometimes what will happen, we'll see later on how it works out. No, nothing like that. She was absolutely focused on what she wanted, and I liked the role very much. It was a stellar role to play, you know. So she said that you'll be in every shot, and you know, will you be able to do it? And I just come back from Germany after a German film that I did. And so I felt that she was very focused, and she knew exactly what she wanted, and I was happy that she's dedicated it to her grandmother who looked after her. And I think, as you said, she is making the film. I think she grieved for her, which was missing in her life, and it made all of us so emotional, because she would get emotional at times. I don't know if she thought we didn't know, but we know that she has written it with a lot of passion, the film.
Yes.
And I like that young people, and I like young directors, and I like people who are focused and know, like my father, as I said, I bring my father always in. He says there's no question of, you know, everything. Youngsters must be focused on what, not to think of this and the other. Everything comes, but the focus should be right, and do your best. That's what you can do.
And
that's the script. Sorry, yeah.
no, go ahead. Like, I was just recalling when we spoke yesterday, a lovely quote that your father said to you about raising children. And as Father's Day today, I just request you to tell the audience.
Oh, yes. Father would always, you know, when my children were growing up, I just told my father, you know, children, they're doing this. So the quote that I told you was that, he said, don't worry what your children are doing. Worry that they are watching you, which has stayed with me, because I think I said the same thing to my children, because children live by example of their parents. And he always set an example by what he did.
Because this thing what?
No, that wasn't, it was someone in the audience.
Okay, yeah, what would you like to ask? Yeah.
No, go
the
ahead.
point is, by living by example, he never told us what to do, but you know, by setting an example with everything, whether it was food or whether it was studying or whatever it was, or exposure to the arts, whatever, everything is there. But it's for children to take from their parents, you know, what they have to. The parent can do only so much.
Correct.
But by then, giving the example, you know, I used to see my father, how he used to work, and what all he did besides astrology, practiced homeopathy, was an excellent artist, he used to paint. You see that, and you imbibe a lot from your parents.
Correct.
And I think, that was what my tribute to my father, really.
So I wanted to also mention that to the audience that you got this offer to make film a few years ago. You studied German in order to act in the film, right?
Yeah, that was quite something. Fortunately, we were allowed to use. Yeah, fortunately, I was an Indian grandmother in Germany. So we were also permitted to use a little English and Hindi words also.
Okay.
So it was not so difficult, but otherwise it was a daunting task to learn German at this age.
Where does that motivation come from? Because you're such an inspiration to all of us, you know. Of course, we reach the age of 50 or 60, we feel like, hey, it's time to retire and, you know, kick up our heels. And partly because society looks at us that way as well. I'm so glad that, you know, you are so motivated. Go ahead, Ben.
I think what? I think I come from a generation where, even though my father was in films, he was quite conservative in his own way. Like, he didn't want us to be in films. He did not, he had a very typically middle-class Bengali, very Bengali attitude towards everything. And yet he was very open, and yet I don't know, it was kind of a dichotomy in his own thing. But he didn't. And we did not have that, although he inspired us, we were not allowed to really get out of the house. We were very sheltered and protected. But I think this generation, they have it all and they don't take advantage of it. And I felt that we had not done what we had wanted to. So then I got married, I had children, my children have grown up, and I said, now I must do what I want to do. So I started with theatre, actually. I started with theatre, with Pearl Padamsi. I don't know if you've heard her name.
Yes, of course.
Yeah, she was the Doyan of the English theatre.
Correct.
And that's how it changed my life, because it changed my life to started thinking, and it's theatre really, when I started working with her on productions and assisting her and everything. So it opened a lot in men. In fact, she acted with my father in a film called Khatta Meetha, which was a very nice, sweet little film, classic film.
Yes,
yeah,
I remember. I have seen it actually a long time back, and I remember that title.
Yeah, it was in the 70s. Yeah, that's right. The audience doesn't want to ask anything.
So I want to just ask Sudeepta a few questions. I'm going to turn towards the audience. Okay, so just bear with. We have with us Sudeepta, who acted as Sunita the maid in the film. Do you also have Sudeepta with us today? Don't think so.
No, ma'am, she hasn't joined. She couldn't join us.
So, okay, Sudeepta, tell us a bit about yourself. Sudeepta, you were so enchanting in the film. Just absolutely loved it. You were such a light-hearted maid, always just taking everything like a little rubber ball almost, absorbing all the shocks and then responding with a smile the whole time. It was so delightful. Tell us a little bit about yourself, and then I want to know whether the film changed your view of the elderly, essentially. So do start by telling us a little bit about yourself. Do you have any projects going on now? And
yeah, thank you for your kind words. So I'm basically from Indore, that's a central state in India, and I came to Bombay for studies, actually for my graduation. Then I got selected into projects. By God's grace, I never tried. My real acting experience started with Crime Patrol. That's a real life story series that come on Sony, and so I've been doing that since 2011. So so I have done more than 80 stories for it, playing various characters, different characters in every story. So it's like a 1 hour film. So so that was a major turning point in my career. So when Priyanka offered me to play Sunita Dee's character, that's Anita Dee in real life. I also have the same rapport as Priyanka shares with her grandmom with my grandmom. I grew up with my nani for many years. So she's like my mother. I used to cry staying with my mother when I separated from my grandmom. So I shared the same rapport with her. When we started rehearsing and reading for the film, it was all Priyanka's inputs, and the way she knew, she was so passionate about the film because it was so close to her heart, her own life story, and the little nuances and the nitty-gritties of every character she had lived with, she experienced firsthand. So it was very easy for us as actors to, emote them. We just went with the flow, and it was so real and so compassionate. I can talk about my character. It was like, really in real life also I'm like that, trying to lighten up the situations, and growing up with my grandmother, teasing her and lightening up the situation. So yeah, it was really, I really gelled with the character.
What so this question is for both you and Bharti. What did you admire most about Priyanka that allowed you or that encouraged you to perform so well? I'll go with you first, and then with Bharti. Go ahead, Sudipta.
Sorry, did I?
The question was, what did you admire most in your director that allowed you or encouraged you
Yes.
to give your best performance?
Yeah, that's what. So Priyanka actually knew what she wanted. So we were so comfortable, and the passion with which she was involved in the film. So it was like we were actually the characters. So we didn't have to put a lot of input from our sides because she exactly knew what she wanted. And so yeah, so lots to learn from Priyanka in the way that she was bang on target. Like we didn't uh, have to go anywhere. She was like our one source, and we just gave it all, like what she said. Yeah, she believed and she trusted, and she trusted us. And
Yeah.
during the rehearsals only, we were so comfortable. We knew what exactly to do in the take. So yeah.
Okay. Bharti, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, but what Priyanka was, I don't know if Priyanka noticed it or not, Priyanka. After I've worked with you in 2 films, I don't know if you noticed it, but whatever instruction she's given, we had to think about it and do it the way she wanted it and all that. But the point definitely remains that I felt all actors would go back to see how they have performed or come and tell the director, oh, please do this shot again. We are not.
Yeah.
But Priyanka, if you remember, I had never come to see how the shot was. I said only if the director, she is in charge. She is the master of the ship.
Lovely.
If she, the captain of the ship, if she thinks it's okay, I'm not going to see whether I've done well or not.
Fabulous.
But she inspired that. Yeah, she inspired that. And it's very extremely. It was refreshing for me to know that Priyanka knew how to get what she wanted out of the actor, and that's what inspired me to do the role. I knew that she had written the script from a soul, actually, about her grandmother, and everybody who saw the film felt that way. That how did you feel? How did you do this? And how did you? It is because she actually made us feel, and everybody felt and empathized with the characters in the film.
And it came through so well.
But the main thing was I knew that if Priyanka liked it, I knew that it was okay. The shot was perfect for her. It was not for me as an actor to say what it was.
And Priyanka, were you? Go ahead, Bharti. Go ahead.
No, I said I trusted the director so much. There is a trust between us, that I know she will not let me do something wrong, or not what she didn't want us to do. That's what.
And Priyanka, were you intimidated by Bharti?
No. No, not at all, ma'am. In fact, when I went to meet her the first time, I got to know Bharti ma'am through. So I didn't know. I was looking for senior actors. Like I wanted somebody who who could play the role of my grandmother. And I spoke to some of my friends, and my friend's mother-in-law knew Bharti ma'am's common friend, and they told me, why don't you go and meet Bharti ma'am? And I remember I immediately called Bharti ma'am and I told her, ma'am, I need to come and meet you. So she said, come. And she was in South Bombay, living in South Bombay that time, and I lived there too. So I went to her, and and she was so, I saw her, and I knew that Bharti ma'am would be the best. And I told her, because I didn't pay my actors, I have to tell you all that I didn't have a budget in short films in India. That's the sad part, that you can't pay your actors, because all the money, my parents helped me make this film, and I put everything in the making. I made sure that I did my best to make the film look good, so that we could get it out to people, to film festivals and a bigger audience. And I told Bharti ma'am and Sudipta and Srishti that I have no money. All I can give you all is, travel money, and I can give you all the best food, but I can't give you all anything else. And they said, no problem. And Bharti ma'am, Sudipta and Srishti, all three of them said, don't worry, as long as we get to set and we like the script. So that is why we're ready to do it. And when I went to Bharti ma'am, I remember she told me, give me a day, I'll read it. And I went for a Bharatnatyam show in the evening. It was a Saturday, I remember. And immediately Bharti ma'am, I finished. It was the interval of that Bharatnatyam show. And I got a message from Bharti ma'am, said, I loved it, I'm doing it. So when I went there, Bharti ma'am was so comfortable. I remember she gave us such nice things to eat, and she made me so comfortable. So I gelled with her immediately. And I was very happy that, she said yes, because that was my biggest concern. And I must tell you all one thing, that Bharti ma'am, even though she never even went to the loo if I had to take a retake, and she said, Priyanka, I have to go in walkie language. To go to the loo, we say we have to go on a 10-1. And every time I used to, after a take, I used to say, ma'am, would you like to go on a 10-1? She used to say, no, we'll finish the take and go. And even if I took 5 takes after that, Bharti ma'am used to not go to the loo. So that was the comfort level that she gave. I never knew Bharti ma'am was Ashok Kumar's daughter. When I got to know, I got shocked, because Bharti ma'am makes you feel very comfortable. She does not have any airs about her and nothing. When you go and you meet her, and if you'll ever get to meet her when you'll come to India, she's so comfortable and so warm. In fact, because she knows I only drink green tea, every time I go to her house, there's always green tea there, and there's always something to eat. So I was not intimidated at all.
Oh, lovely. See, for me, this film was very powerful message, because many of us are either dealing with or have dealt with an aging parent or an aging grandparent. And, some of us allow ourselves to become detached or removed from the issue at hand, or the care that, the parents need, or the longing that the parents have, because in some ways it's too painful for some people to watch parents grow old. And so, we tend to get lost in our work or our kids. Sometimes we live in another country, we visit for a few days, a month or two. And then, but yet, these are our primary relationships. And now you see your dad or your mom aging, fading away. And it's really traumatizing in some ways to all of us. And so it's much easier for us to something else. But then you were there so hands-on with parents. I really commend you for that, because you dealt with the issue head on. I'm going to open up some questions to the audience. Because Kashyap had emailed me saying he had a question. And Vikas, I guess your question is for all three. All three.
Yes, actually, first of all, I want to say that my grandfather was bedridden for 10 years, and my uncle brought a 17-year-old girl from India to take care of him. But he had a lot of trouble with a young girl cleaning him and all that. So end of life, elderly care is really tough. Now, one of the books that first of all, I'm a physician, and I'm passionate about dementia and end of life issues. And so, one of the books I recommend to all my patients is a 36-hour day. And the 36-hour day is a book for families, and I gave those books away to all my families, my patients, to deal with and how to deal with, that things like aggression and how to respond to that. And I was just impressed at how patient that both the girls were with the grandmother. It was just so touching.
And you have a question or a comment?
Yeah, the question would be that did a patient have dementia?
Yes, my grandmother did have dementia because he kept on. Yeah.
The question was, did the patient have dementia? Was the question, Bharti?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
And Priyanka's answering, right? Go ahead,
Yeah.
Priyanka.
Yeah. So she did have dementia, but she did remember. She had problems with her short-term memory, not with her long-term memory, because she remembered her account numbers and our phone numbers and everything else. But she kept on forgetting what she just said. That is why when she used to get angry with me, and now the characters were an exact replica. The granddaughter was me, and Sudipta played Anita Didi, who was exactly like how Sudipta acted. In fact, when Anita Didi came and watched the film at the premiere, she knew all the dialogues before she watched the film, because it is like a replica of the film. And she looked at me and said, "Abhi ye bolegi na, abhi wo bolegi na," because she knew. And Anita Didi and my grandmother, that is why when she used to get angry and she used to abuse, she forgot. Every time she used to say, and I don't know where she learned this bad language, because I don't use bad language. So I don't know where my grandmother learned these Hindi galis from. So we used to be in shock. Kya ye nani ko kaise aa gaya? You know, because Nani used to, and then after just like 10 seconds, she used to say, I used to say, Nani, how can you say this to Anita Didi and call her these bad words and all? And in a matter of 10 seconds, she used to say, where did I say it? I didn't say anything. I did, and then I used to get even more angry. So my parents used to tell me, Priyanka, you don't understand. In fact, there was this one incident with my grandmother, where I remember I was doing some work in the hall and my parents were having tea with her, and suddenly my father came out laughing, and I said, what happened? He said, no, Nani thinks we've come to visit her in the hospital because now it's visiting us, so she's telling us, theek hai, abhi visiting us khatam ho gaya, you go. So that was how, I don't know, my grandmother had a very vivid imagination. Her favorite color was green. So every time I used to come into the room and I used to say, what happened, Nani? She used to look at all the green fields, because my mom's Roman Catholic and we are from Goa. So we had a beautiful home, a bungalow, which is sold now. And my grandmother used to keep on imagining green fields and pigs. I don't know how she got that imagination. So I don't know that dementia came with those hallucinations or what, but her hallucinations were so vivid that it inspired me to even write a feature film. Because she used to just tell me, I can see a lady. I don't know if it was a memory or I don't know what, but what an imagination she had. So yes, I guess she had dementia, because when we went to the doctor and we spoke to neurologists, they said that, yeah, but it's not. But they were also confused, because when we used to take her to the hospital, if she had any issue, they used to wonder what kind of, in fact, one neurologist at this very big hospital in Bombay said that we have to study her case. So I don't know what my grandmother had, because she used to say things that they couldn't understand.
I have a comment.
Yeah.
Bharti, let's hear from you, Bharti. And Sudipta. I think, Sudipta, let's hear from you and we'll connect with Bharti. Bharti, Sudipta, go ahead.
Yeah, so so I think definitely the how the character was shaped of Bharti ma'am, that she did brilliantly. I could connect with the problems she was facing, and just going with the wind, and just behaving normally, just not giving extra attention to what she was going through, and just going with the flow. I think I think one needs to go with the flow and not try to correct. That is my perception, because I haven't personally experienced such a thing, but during shooting, yeah, I felt that we should go with the flow and not and try to go into the personal space of what the person is imagining that time. Just be with him, just play along. Yeah, that's what I felt during the shoot.
Bharti, question.
Can I say a comment?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, one of the things about dementia is there's a certain amount of disinhibitions. And I think the language is probably disinhibitions. The societal puts inhibitions on you, and with dementia you get a certain amount of disinhibitions, and so you end up saying things that you normally wouldn't have said in polite society.
Is it? Yeah.
Go ahead, Bharti.
Right. I just wanted to say the background of my background and the grandmother's background. We're quite different, although I'm convent educated, and I know, as the gentleman just said, we're not brought up to use expletives in a convent.
Yes.
When Priyanka gave me the script and I said, "Oh God, you think I'm going to do all this for your grandmother?" She says, "No." She said, she spoke. She told, "I'm not." Even the worst thing she said about to the maid when she gets angry with her. She takes out all her, vents her anger. Because as I said, we were brought up in a different generation where we were not allowed to. We were very, I don't know, in a way, I guess, Victorian values of how a lady should be. And she's from a Christian background, and she was working, and it is, I just can't explain to you. You were not brought up that way. So when she said that you'd have to say these, my friends and my family were absolutely shocked. She said, "How did you use all that language?" I said, "Look, I did a character. She wanted that. I wanted to be. I was not going to not do what she." But maybe, as he said, we were not not used to using such language, and so we give vent to it when you're older. I hope not. Certainly.
Thank you for I want to move to the next person on the list of questions, Anita Vaturi. Anita, you want to go ahead with your question?
I just wanted to say that I saw this movie, it resonated because my mother went through the same thing. She was well, and then she wasn't well, and taking care of her was not always easy. It was difficult, and she had good days and bad days. So it really resonated with me, and I think that would be my comment because I'm sure that one reason why the movie is so good is because it would resonate with a lot of us who have older parents, and with people who are older themselves. You can see being in that situation. And I thought you did a good job of getting the good and the bad moments together. There are the loving moments, and then there's the anger and the frustration, which Bharti just did a wonderful job of expressing that. And the only thing was that they kept showing both the maid and the granddaughter as always being positive, and in reality, you're not always positive. That's that would just be my comment. But I did enjoy the movie. I thought it was very well done, really well done. Thank you.
Thank you for your question, Anita. And the next question is Pulin Kinkimbaka. Pulin, ask your question, and then next I have Kalp.
I have some problem with the video.
Okay, can you hear me?
Absolutely.
Hi, it's Pulin Kinkawal from Chicago area. I thought a very interesting movie that you captured the end moments of older people. I thought it touched on frustrations that grandmother goes through, the frustrations of older people. And I've seen that in both my parents' case, when they're completely independent otherwise, and they're providing for the family. When they get old, how do they retain their dignity and become bothersome to their children? You just touched the subject that grandmother gets angry at times, but did you consider expanding that aspect? Because I think that's a very useful aspect for society to understand, as we all are going to get old someday. Any comments on that, Priyanka or Bharti?
We're quite old, some of us already.
They didn't want
So, but the anger moments were, I think, what I wrote is exactly how my grandmother was. Like, it was very very quick. Like, she used to get angry, and I guess how ma'am earlier said that I used to have a meltdown sometimes, because there was a time which I feel I get emotional thinking about it, was when my grandmother once couldn't eat, and she was on an aspirin, and the doctor told me that she has to eat before she takes the aspirin, and my grandmother was not ready to take it, and she just kept on throwing the tablets out like you saw in the film. And I remember it was 10 o'clock in the night and my parents were not, my mother used to fly for Air India and my father was a captain in the Merchant Navy. So both of them were not at home and my maid was at home and she was busy cleaning the kitchen and my grandmother refused to eat. And I started saying, Nani, please, please, please eat. And I had a meltdown and I started crying. But my grandmother got so angry with me, she started screaming on top of her voice. Like she got hysterical at 10 o'clock in the night. And I live in a private building with only 6 families. And I thought my neighbors will come. And what I did was I said, Nani, stop screaming. She said, no, y'all are trying to, I'm going to tell the whole world what you're doing. And I remember I covered her mouth. And in that bargain, when I covered her mouth, she bit her lip and her whole mouth was filled with blood. And I got a shock of my life because I thought I killed my grandmother, and her mouth was filled with blood. And it was like I'm thinking about it and getting scared. And I remember that was the time I said I'm not going to touch my grandmother anymore because that anger which came, there were bouts of it. Like somebody, and I remember before she passed away, I had gone for a shoot. I was an assistant director and I was doing an ad with Shah Rukh Khan in Panchgani. And I remember that morning because she used to get irritated with the maids cleaning her. She used to be very embarrassed that she had to use a pamper. But I am so OCD, but with my grandmother, I guess because she did that for me, I did it very naturally. It came to me very naturally. And I had a fight with her. It was a massive fight where she messed the bed. And I think because that night she had that convulsion and it was the body reacting, I don't know. And she messed the bed and I started fighting my grandmother. Why didn't you tell me? And I remember before I left the house, I told her I will always remember this. And I think that affected me psychologically because before I left, she was abusing me. And I said, God will punish you for this. And that night I got a call from my grandmother saying that Nani is very serious. You have to come back. So this anger is something that is very difficult to deal with. And yes, I also had my meltdown, but I couldn't put that in the film because I didn't want to scare my audience. Maybe one day when I decide to make My Pot of Gold a feature film, I will tell you what my grandmother was and what she became, because apparently when I speak to her sisters who are still living and her brother-in-laws, they tell me that my grandmother was a bombshell because she was born in 1927 and that was the time when there was British Raj in India, and all her old photographs were with which she only wore pearls and she had A-line dresses. She wore hats and gloves and she had matching suede shoes. So I think for her, that was the problem. That was the anger. And the main thing was she lost her eyesight because she was so involved in looking after me and my mother and the parents and everyone that she didn't go for her cataract operation. She got cataract and glaucoma and lost her sight. The frustrating part was that her eyesight, she couldn't see. My grandmother loved cricket. My grandmother loved tennis. She used to watch the US Open and all the Open. She was a cricket fan. But another frustrating thing was when she lost her eyesight, maybe she would have lived longer if she could at least see. She just couldn't see. So that was frustrating. And my aunt once told me that my mother's cousin, that, you're fighting with your grandmother, just try to shut your eyes for a whole day and see how frustrating it is. So I guess the anger came from there. That because she couldn't do anything. She was so handicapped. And I tried to motivate her by reading. Like we saw in the film, the granddaughter kept on reading to her passages from the Bible, from the church bulletin. I used to make her listen to Konkani songs. My grandmother was a very good singer. So she used to love to sing. She had a beautiful voice. So that's how we made Bharti ma'am sing. So there were a lot of times when the anger, where I can tell you so many incidents, but I didn't have the time because it was a 1-hour film. So if hopefully one day I make a feature film, you all will get to see what happened to her. Like she used to get angry most of the time, but the frustration came out from the fact that she couldn't do anything on her own. And she used to always say, I'm an invalid and I'm an invalid and I don't want you to do this for me. That's why even the scene with the pot, whenever I used to come to my grandmother and I used to say, Nani, I'll throw water. I used to say, should I wash for you? She used to say, no, just throw water. I'll wash myself. Because she used to be embarrassed till the last. She used to feel embarrassed about the fact that my grandkid is doing this for me. My grandchild is cleaning me, and because I was OCD, I used to keep cleaning her like multiple times. And she said, if I was in a hospital or if I had a caregiver, would they have done that? I said, Nani, that's the difference. When you are looked after by family and when you are looked after by a hospital or like an old age home.
let's that's really touching. Sudipta and Bharti, do you want to add anything to that question?
Yeah, that last scene in which she doesn't want to go for a bath, you just have fright for going for a bath, and in the end, she goes for the bath and she gets so angry, she's so scared and she's so frightened, in which she scratches the maid. She doesn't know who it was, but she scratches, but she knows that she has done something wrong. If you know, I don't know if people remember that scene in the end, almost to the end, when they're taking her for a bath. She never wanted to go for a bath, I think. Right, Priyanka?
Yeah, she used to always get scared to go for a bath because we had to take the wheelchair to the bathroom. This was exactly how, and that scene which you saw was shot in my grandmother's house, and that was exactly how we did it every single day. And she used to scratch Anita Didi and do that because she was scared. Like Bharti ma'am said, she was scared to enter a bath, thinking that we drop her down.
So Deepta, what was? Yeah, go ahead, Bharti.
No, that's what I thought. And then the very fact that she apologizes to the maid after she realizes that she has done something wrong. And I wanted to ask Priyanka also, when she went into lapse memory, like how she remembered this just before dying. She remembers her parents. Did she remember her parents?
Yeah, this happened. She used to always think of her parents. Like she used to keep on saying, I can see my father, I can see my mother. So now that has frightened me, because every time my parents keep on saying I'm dreaming about Nani, I think acha abhi time aaya hoga. Because my grandmother has put that in my head, that every time she used to say, Arey, I can see my father, he's calling me. I'm dreaming of my mother, she's calling me. So every time my father comes and tells me, Arey, I dreamt of my parents, I feel, oh my God, now it's time. So that always happens. I guess, I don't know.
Anyway, anybody else wants to ask anything?
Yes, we have some more questions, but I want to give Sudipta a chance to
Sudipta, please do. Yeah.
So whatever I've experienced about this is through this film. I observed that people, what they are in their core, their virtues, they always roam around here and there by imagination, but they come back to their virtues and the goodness which is inherent in them, and then they react accordingly. Even if their mind is unable to comprehend, their heart still is there and has the right spirit. So they come back again and again, go and then they come back. So yeah, I observed that and experienced through this film that might have been the case with Nani. And I think it's with everyone. Even when we are not in the old age, but still we let our mind wander here and there, and then again we come back to the core, what we actually are and our upbringing, and then we react accordingly and feel what we really are actually. And Bharti ma'am, I want to thank Priyanka for giving me this opportunity. Privileged to work with Bharti ma'am. The way she portrayed the Nani's character, I think we just had to react. It came out naturally. Especially the bathroom scene. It was so natural. It was so organic. We used to act like, you could feel the heart pumping. When we were taking her on the wheelchair, it was so. It came out so organically.
Just a quick comment, Priyanka. You were so lucky to have a cheerful helpmate for this. Unless this was a personality of Sudipta that came out.
No, sir. This was exactly how Anita was. Sudipta, that was not fiction. In fact, she worked with us off late. She just left us because she moved from the place where we stay, and that was exactly how Anita Didi was. She was so nice. Like my mother always said that she was like a guardian angel for us, because all the other maids who came before her, they couldn't deal with it. But I guess most of the maids that we had, I think my grandmother had a very loving temperament. So whenever she got angry, they knew that this was not Nani talking. It was her frustration. Because when she was herself, she gave them everything. Like whatever she ate, she used to say, "Tu bhi kha." If we gave her a chocolate, she used to give the maid a chocolate. So my grandmother was by nature a very loving person all her life. So I guess it was her good karma that she got people like that to look after her.
Thank you. Thank you for your question, Pulin. I want to hand this over to Kalpa Shah Maniar. Kalpa, go ahead, ask your question to all three.
Okay, thanks. Priyanka, Sudipta, Bharti, awesome job. Wonderful. And even, Sakshi, right?
Srishti, ma'am.
It's Srishti, sorry. Very well done. But I have several things to ask, Priyanka. One is, you did mention dementia that your grandmother suffered from.
Right.
Did you all consider Alzheimer's as part of dementia or not? Because many of the things, the lapses in memory, or regressing into the childhood, or thinking about her parents and all. Because I'll just give you a very one-line background. My mother-in-law passed away last year, and she was a doctor living in Bombay, but then moved to the US several years ago. Did not practice medicine, but in the last 10 years before she passed away, after her cancer set in, she was detected with cancer, with Alzheimer's. And, all the things that were portrayed in the film, I was thinking of all of that also. But, even that example that when Bharti talks about, you guys are trying to get my wealth, and, y'all are abusing me, and y'all are trying to take my wealth away from me. Or I think, isn't there a scene like that? So,
Yes.
So these insecurities, and I'm only mentioning this again because you do talk about making a feature film at some point, perhaps, if you get a chance.
Right.
And so would you bring those elements in? That's one. The other thing is, Sudipta, those very poignant scenes, I wrote in a message earlier that, it was portrayed really well. I don't think those were glycerine tears. I mean, did they just come out naturally? Because it was very overwhelming, right? To see her very soft and gentle at one moment, and then using cuss words and really even biting you, or like really getting at you. So, I mean, would you like to comment? And if you had more production, whether financing was more easily available this time, would you have made a longer film? Sorry,
yeah. So should I answer first?
Yes, of course. Yeah, I mean, feel free.
So to answer your question about the money, yes, my grandmother always had that thing that she always thought that my parents and I were taking away her money. So she used to always call the people in the building, and she knew this one young friend of mine who's much younger than me, like 10 years younger than me. His name is Pranav, and now he's a big boy and he stays above me. She used to keep, I don't know how she remembered Pranav's name. Maybe, my grandmother was fond of him in her younger days, and he was a very young kid, and he used to keep on saying, Pranav. She used to keep on calling Pranav, and she's saying, these people are taking my money. They are doing all this because they want my property. And my mother said, Mummy, we don't want your property. So she used to say, no, you are taking all of you are just doing all this because you want my money. And anyway, we never felt bad about it, but my mother used to laugh it off. And but that was definitely there. And yes, if I had the money, and I hope to write the film in a longer as a feature film, because thankfully we now have Netflix and Amazon Prime. Because for a young filmmaker like me, and I can say that for many of my colleagues, is that most of us, we are not made to make I love watching Bollywood masala films, but I don't write those kind of films. So 10 years ago, it was very difficult for us to make. Like, I always thought that because I've been brought up in a Roman Catholic family, although my dad is a Rajput, I have been exposed to films, a lot of English films, because my mother and my grandmother used to watch a lot of old English films with Cary Grant and the Ten Commandments and My Fair Lady and Mary Poppins. So I write films like that. So thankfully now, because of all these OTT platforms, I have gotten a chance to, I hope I get a producer to, once I write this film, so that I get a lot of people to watch this film, because then I will plan to make it a 2.5-hour film, where I can show my grandmother's younger days, where what she was what she was. I
Right.
can set up there, or what she was, how she was so particular about her looks and about her fingers and her nails. And so, yes, like she was very, very particular about herself. So maybe if I had the budget and I know I can, maybe I can then show so much more, because a lot of people
Right.
complained to me during the screening that they didn't understand. They said, y'all, you don't justify all this. I try to explain to them that it's a slice of life film. If
Exactly.
I don't have the time, I don't have the money and the time to make a feature film, to go down memory lane,
Of
where
course.
I can show what my grandmother was like. So many people found it was incomplete because they said, I said it's a day in the life of my grandmother, my maid, and me.
Exactly. Right.
So
Yeah,
I
no,
hope,
absolutely. Because even confining yourself to just that one room and half a bathroom, like, it was
right,
obviously you had those limitations. And so
right.
within that, you did a marvelous job. And
Yes,
with
and the
just,
reason yes, ma'am, I chose this film because I'm
yeah,
not a person who watches a film in one room. I don't have the patience. Even though I'm as an audience, I get very frustrated about the fact. That is why I told Bharti ma'am, Sudipta and Srishti that I do not believe in these kind of films. But so that my audience does not get bored, your acting has to be bang on. That you should be angry, you should be sad, you should be abusing, you should be happy. The arc should keep on moving up and down so that we don't bore you all, because it's
right,
very easy in such kind of films to bore the audience, and it's very easy for us with OTT platforms to say she boring, forward karo, आगे बढ़ो. Like, I don't want to watch this film. Let's watch
right,
something which is, so I'm very happy and very touched that Rati ma'am really liked this film. And after 2 years of winning the People's Choice Award at Cincinnati, I have so many people, you all coming here, the audience that we have today
sure.
just goes to show and motivates us that there is an audience for these kind of films.
Absolutely, absolutely. And
Because,
more
yeah,
is the need. There is
right,
much more need for these because these are burning issues. And, if producers and directors come upon with, these themes, this is what the call of the day. So,
right, right,
it's,
right.
and I also want to add, but I haven't, like Sudipta has to speak, but I also want to say that Bharti did a marvelous job. Um, and you, in your real life, weren't you way too young to have to deal with these issues? Uh, but when I saw Bharti, who crossed my mind? If in some other era when Bharti wasn't in acting and all that, like Bharti wasn't in films, or back in the day when Deena Pathak was, Supriya and Ratna Pathak's mother, Deena
Right, right,
Pathak.
right.
While I was watching Bharti, Deena Pathak crossed my mind continually, and I felt that Deena Pathak would have done just the kind of acting, and she was a marvelous actress, and Bharti did a marvelous job. So, you know, I think, but you were way too young to have to look after your mom at that age.
My grandmother, ma'am. Yeah.
Can we hear what
Yeah, yeah. I mean, yes, your grandmother. Sorry. Yeah.
just hear what Bharti just said? Bharti, go ahead.
I said Deena Pathak was one of my favorite actresses. I think she acted so well, and I'm really flattered to think that you're comparing me with her. I don't really deserve that. I'm a very young actress, a young old face, as I said,
No. You did a great job. You did a great job. So
Amazing. It was
Sudipta has to respond.
So ma'am, to your question, I did use glycerine. I need it. I don't know, when I'm on camera, I initially need glycerine, and then I flow with the emotion, and then they automatically come, the shivering and everything. But it's all give and take in acting, and I feel Bharti ma'am really made me feel, according to the script, the way I should have felt, and the scene actually was like very touching, and her coming back, her apologizing, and I felt so guilty. Why is she doing it, Nanu? Why are you crying? And it was really that heart to heart bond which we had. That
You all did a great job. Given that all of you all are so young, and it was wonderful. So thank you for bringing the film to light and the issue to light. So,
Thank you for that question. I just want to also make a quick comment that at the Indian Film Festival of Cincinnati, we try to bring in stories that anyone can watch and say, well, this is my story too. So we bring in stories that cut across cultures, so that it's not just the Indian culture that's watching the film, but the majority culture as well that we're in. and they can look at it and say, well, you know, that's not just an Indian story, that's my story too. And so for that, I'm really grateful.
It's a human story. It's
Exactly.
a human story.
It's
about human relationships. That's it. Yeah.
Absolutely, Bharti. You said that right. I think we might have a comment from Lena or Menaka. I'm trying to look through to see if there are any more comments or questions. Lena there? I don't see Lena. Was there a question from Menaka, or was there a question from Abhijit?
I don't have a question, but I can make a comment.
Okay, go ahead. Menaka's my daughter, Priyanka.
Hi.
I wanted to say that I really enjoyed the film, and I thought something that was extremely important and what I really appreciated what you did is really showed the perspective, both this being your story and your kind of recollection of you and your grandmother. You did a really good job of showing the perspective of your grandmother. I'm the youngest in my family, so most of my memories with my grandmother are kind of in, although she was very different, she had, you know, kind of in this state.
We can't quite hear you. 1 second, just hold that. Amit, there's some noise in the background. Can you block out that noise, Amit? There's somebody's noise in the background. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I was just saying a lot of my memories are kind of my grandmother in sort of a similar state. And as a young child, you know, there's a lot of times where you don't understand the other perspective and you don't really understand what they're going through. And I think, you know, even watching this today, even though that was almost, you know, 2 decades ago or whatever, you know, it's crazy the thoughts that came to my head of how much of her perspective I was kind of recollecting. And I think you just did an amazing job showing that. And I think, you know, having more films that kind of show that perspective. And I also am kind of curious, how did you kind of reflect her perspective of it so much? Because this is your story and your, you know, view of how you and your grandmother were. How were you able to capture so much of her side of it? Because I felt like I could understand why she was getting frustrated. And it made me think of my grandmother when, although she wouldn't yell or shout, you could tell when she was frustrated or when she was being stubborn or when she didn't want to do something. So how were you able to capture that so well and give that insight?
Is that question?
Yeah. As well as the cast, because it definitely came through the acting as well.
So Menka, it was basically I knew what my grandmother. My parents, like I said, traveled. My grandmother was my mother and my father, and whatever you saw in the film, because she was somebody who spoke about what she just said, and my grandmother was somebody, maybe I think I've got this thing of being a filmmaker from her, because whatever she felt, she said, and that is how I am as a person. I don't, if there's something that upsets me or something that makes me happy, I have to deal with it at that moment, because that is, now that you say it, it really brings things back, because maybe I have got that from my grandmother, because whatever she felt, she spoke about. Where she was angry, where she used to tell me that, you know, I feel really bad that you all have to wash me. Then, and this thing about where she used to get scared to die, because maybe she knew, like we all know, right? Like today, my aunt just told me that one thing for certain is that we've come and we will go. So maybe she knew that, and she always told me that, you know, will you be okay? Don't fight with your parents, because I fight a lot with my mother and my father. So she said, don't fight with them. She's saying, I'm always there for you. I'm always praying for you. So whatever you saw at that scene in the night was exactly what all the dialogues, Menka, were exactly what my grandmother said. Like they were her dialogues. I have not fictionalized anything. Nothing has been fictionalized in this film except for like maybe that was not how she died. I always wanted her to pass away the way I showed it in the film. That was the only thing that was fictionalized. I always said that, you know, my grandmother should have because she deserves to have a death like that, where she passes away in her sleep, and unfortunately she didn't have that. So whatever, like you said, whatever she felt was what she told me, and that is how I have put everything. What she said and what she did was all from her mouth, and that went down in my script.
That was a great question, Menaka. And Bharti and Sudipta, would you like to also, maybe Bharti especially, respond to that, to Menaka's question? Menaka, by the way, is my daughter, Bharti.
Oh, Okay, all right, okay. I'm sorry, can't hear that the audio is a little difficult. I'm in a different room and in a different home actually. I'm in my brother's house, so I couldn't hear properly. What was the question exactly?
Menaka, do you want to?
In short.
Yes, so I was just curious how you were able to capture the grandmother's perspective so well, since this was a story, you know, from Priyanka's view, being the granddaughter. My grandmother, I think, though she went through some similar things, she couldn't communicate very well for most of my lifetime. So she wasn't able to say when she was angry or when she was happy or anything like that. But you could tell by her mannerisms and what she would say. And I thought the film did a really good job and let me kind of reflect and understand what my grandmother was going through. So how were you able to really capture her side of the story?
Is she speaking from Cincinnati or she's speaking from somewhere else?
She's speaking from New York, and her question was that growing up, she had seen her grandmother, you know, sort of express her feelings without speaking because she was not in a position to speak. And so she it really brought back memories for her, and she is curious to know how. What was that question again, Menaka? You're curious to know
how you depicted the perspective of the grandmother so well, since it's a story from the granddaughter.
Yes, how were you able to actually you know, reflect that perception of the grandmother through Priyanka's stories to you? Because you seem, in Priyanka's words, to have captured her grandmother so perfectly. So what do you attribute that to, and how were you able to carry it out?
It may sound really off what I'm trying to tell you.
Menaka.
What is your daughter's name? Sorry,
Menaka.
I didn't get it.
Menaka.
Menaka?
Yes.
See, a script is given to you to do this, and then you have to work on the character. You have to play that character the way it is supposed to be played, but an actor has to be himself and not be himself also, because an actor draws from one's own experiences to bring out the character. So you have to also add your imagination of what it would be like if it has happened to you, or if it is going to happen to you, and then see the character's perception and see how, how would I portray this? Is it like this? You have to go within yourself and bring out your own experiences to try and perfect to the best of our ability the character that, the result that Priyanka wanted. I hope that is what I could say about it.
Yeah, you did answer. Thank you for that question, Abhijit, and followed by Vikas. We have 2 questions left. So Abhijit would like to ask a question now.
Well, I think I want to make a comment. I know you guys are talking about your grandmother, and I unfortunately have to reveal that I have to talk about my mother when I saw the film in the film festival. My mother died at age 100. And exactly what we saw in the film, I experienced when I visited her every year. Her interaction with her, the caretaker, and her interaction with my sister-in-law, who took care of her while we were all here in USA, and I can't thank her enough for what she did. It just goes to show you, how a person who has these moments when they physically feel that they can do things, or mentally thinks they can do things, and physically they cannot, and their frustration is always reflected in their interactions with their caretakers, and it was very well done by all the people in the film, So I'm sure this psychological research has been done, and I'm not sure anybody, the cast or the filmmaker, has any comments on that, or the audience, about what kind of research has been done in this situation.
What kind of
research?
Oh, research. I don't know about Priyanka. She's young filmmaker. Priyanka, you'll have to answer that. Is it just being a grandmother?
Yeah. No, sir. This is only from, I have not done any research because what you saw was exactly my nanny story. I had, the other ma'am said that I was only 27 when I lost my nanny, and I made this film when I was 28. So at that time, I was so overwhelmed by looking after her. Yes, I know Google is something that many doctors and their other souls of physician would say not to Google, but I never had the time to Google anything because I realized that I was so engrossed. My life revolved around my nanny. And I never researched. Even when I was writing the film, it was just, I remember I was working with American Productions. I was in front of my laptop and I finished writing that film in exactly 2 weeks because there was nobody else. All my grandmother is, she has 5 sisters and 1 brother. And she was the first person to pass away from all of them. And my other aunts and all were all okay. My grandmother was always somebody who was a very quiet person and very, she had a nervous breakdown. She thought a lot, too much of thinking and things like that. So she was my only research. I had no other research, no other example of anyone. And that is why when I did the premiere, I never thought that I'd make anyone cry. We had 2 premiere shows before friends and family, and everybody came out with red eyes and a leaking nose. And they told us, and they fired me saying, we didn't expect this. And I was shocked that they cried because this was just my story. I never knew that it would place. And so, just like you said, there were so many people. Even when the film was screened at the Indian Festival of Cincinnati, and Rati ma'am told me to come on a conference call. I clearly remember that everybody said that they cried, and that was not my motive. I never had this thing to make anybody cry. I never thought anybody would cry watching my film, because when they came out, they actually, yes.
Priyanka,
these are the tears of, how you get touched. It is not, obviously that was not your intention, but
Right.
every one of us can relate to that. And that's what the most fascinating part of the movie is, that, even my mother, I so vividly remember, is she was in her dying days, and she would remember her brother, her sister who had died, her mother who had died obviously many, many years ago. So it's just fascinating that, all of us have a similar kind of experiences with either our grandmother or our mother. And that just was very fascinating. That's what I was just curious, whether there's any kind of research been done to see what exactly happens. Unfortunately.
Yeah, just to interject here, that I think the audience feels either they are going through it, as you're saying you have, or they've been through it, or will go through it in the future.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I have a question for Bharti. Have you yourself experienced anything like that with your mother, your parents, to be able to relate while you did this amazing role?
No, I haven't. I had a nice grandma. I had 2 grandmothers who used to tell me lovely stories. I remember all those things that I've shared with my grandmother. No, but I haven't been through that yet. But what I said, that the audience felt that either they will go through, or have they, as you said, you have been through, or are going through at this, and that's why everybody cries at certain point, because it touches you. That, oh God, maybe this is going to come to me at one day. Whether it's your parent or not. No, so far I haven't gone through that. But the point is, I think you were saying something about when you can't do things for yourself is one of the most frustrating things at a particular age. Because your mind, unfortunately, is so fast. I sometimes feel I'm 18 years old, but I'm not 18 years old. I'm not, because physically I'm not 18. I can't do what I used to do at, but mentally one is so active. I think it's a little unfair that we go through.
That is true, isn't it? That is very true.
Yeah.
So Deepika, do you have? It is, isn't it? Mm-hmm. I wondered if Deepika had a comment, and then we'll take the last question from Vikas. So Deepika, do you have a comment?
I think that we should live in the now and let people live in their now, and just support them, be beside them, and not tell them anything, that stop thinking like this is not that. Obviously, encourage them, motivate them that, your fears are unreal, but let them be in their now and in their comfort zone, whatever they are thinking. Let's not negate that, because yes, obviously we'll be there at some point in our life. So just try and be by their side, and just not shift their attention to something else. Just let them be. Yeah.
I think that's such an important lesson now, Sudeepta. And yet, for so many of us, your kids will be constantly telling you something, or you'll be telling your parents something. It just
Yeah.
seems like a natural process. But I think that's very good. That's a very good point that you make, that we could all be mindful as we deal with the elderly. We could be much more mindful. I'll take a last question from Vikas. I know we're over time. I'll take the last question if I may. Um, thank you, Bharti. Vikas?
Yes. So one of the things I want to say is that she had blindness, and with dementia, anytime you lose any of the senses, it makes the dementia much worse. And the key thing with dementia is input, input, input. You know, and so I think if anybody has any issues, be it eyesight, be it hearing, somebody make sure they get hearing aids, because any of these issues will make the dementia worse exponentially. So key things input. Now the other thing, don't give up on them. There are various things that you can do to make them active. I have a home care company, and I work with my nurses about dementia and what they do with them activities wise, and it's all about input, input, input. It's very important to keep them some form of input to make the dementia uh, um, a little bit more contained.
Very good. Yeah. But you notice that in this, even the one day sorry, may I speak out of
Yes, go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, we noticed in the whole film, she never left her alone for a minute. It was everything from her feeding, and it like she kept her active throughout the film. Throughout that one day, she kept her always, going. Whether it was her medicine, whether it was her exercise, whether it was her feeding time, whether it was whatever, singing, whatever, everything, going through a whole routine. The point is to keep them, as you said, because to keep feeding them, to talk to them all the time. They have to be. They don't feel unwanted then, right? Do you feel that?
I didn't quite. Yeah, that's good. That's good that she had all the activities in view of her inability to see. But again, I'm not talking about just her and just in terms of just eyesight. I'm talking about in general. Anybody you should pay attention to their any form. I mean, be it needing glasses, needing hearing aids. These five senses. Anyone with five senses that lost will make the dementia worse exponentially. So it's very good that she kept busy. She was in touch, and she's very fortunate, very fortunate to have such good care. I mean, I was just touched, very touched. Not many people have that kind of care.
Hand this over to Sudeepta. Sudeepta, do you have some reflections, some comments that you want to make on the film as such? You were such a lovely character in the film. And yeah, if you don't mind just sharing that with us. And And also a question for Priyanka, the last question was how long did she have to deal with this whole, the whole time? So first I'll go to Sudipta, your reflections, so we can wrap up. And
So every project I do is very close to my heart. This as well was because Priyanka was so much personally involved, emotionally involved, and with this project, and she knew exactly what to take out from her actors, the right kind of emotions. And so it was firstly very smooth shooting experience. We knew exactly what to do. And I was also fortunate to meet Anita Didi, the character I played, and I could grasp a lot of her essence, and I tried to portray that. And I think it was a very my relation with Nani, and it was a give and take thing. And it was hats off to Bharti ma'am that her performance helped me a lot to give, just to react to what she was doing and saying. So yeah, the sensitivity and the patience that this character really taught me that, those virtues. Yeah.
what's your next project, Sudipta?
Um, so, uh, so we are waiting. Today itself, we got a green signal from Cinta that we are able to start shooting again. They have resolved the matters. Otherwise, we weren't shooting for 3 months now. So I'll get back to mostly doing Crime Patrol. Yeah.
So you'll be back in Crime Patrol. And Kalpana?
Hello.
Kalpana, oh, I'm sorry, Vikas, did you want to wrap that up? So Kalpa can ask.
Oh, great.
Okay. Priyanka actually answered the question. How long did she have to actually deal with her grandmother having regressed like that, or the dementia? And go ahead, Priyanka.
I'm sure it was quite a few years, right?
Yes, this started, I think, 3 years. This is how we dealt with this entire thing for like 3 years. She passed away in 2013, and this started in 2011. 11 to 12, yeah, 11, like 3 years off and on. Like 2010, that's when she got into the hospital, and this started. And before that, we started getting a few hints, because she used to walk into the passage of our home, because we live in an old South Bombay home. She used to go in the middle of the night when we were all asleep. She used to take her purse and her keys and go and stand at the passage and say, "I'm listening to mass, and I'm standing in line for communion." So I used to come in the middle, and I used to hear some noise, and I used to come and say, "What are you doing?" And I was very young then, because this started, I was just like 22, 23. And I told her, I said, "Nani," and I used to fight with her in the middle of the night. Sometimes she used to go to the door at 4 o'clock in the morning, and she used to scream out to my neighbors saying, "They've locked me up. Help me, help me." And at one point of time, she went down the staircase when her eyes were just, going. And those things frightened me as a child, because my parents didn't think of it so seriously. Like, they knew that they were off and on, they were not here. Those are the things that scared me. But I just hope nobody has to go through this. I hope everybody has a fit and healthy life. I don't want this for anyone.
I hope so too, because let's all try to keep healthy and well
Right.
during COVID season.
Right.
I do want to thank all our director and our cast members for coming here today. Bharti, thank you so much for being with us. You're so delightful to speak with, and we would love to have you back with us again. Maybe we'd do an Ashok Kumar night. I would love to have you back again. Thank you to Sudipta. Sudipta, thank you for coming over and sharing your story. And yeah, it was lovely talking to you. And Priyanka, what a pleasure to have you here with us and for you to share a powerful story of your grandmother. Looking forward to your new projects. I know you have a new film coming out. I think it's called Well Done.
Yes, baby. Well done, baby. Yes.
I'm looking forward to having you send it to us for our film festival.
Sure.
And yeah, looking forward to seeing what it's all about as well.
Okay, thank you,
audience, for being here with us. Thank you, all of you. Last words from the cast, and then we can wrap up. Sorry to interrupt, Bharti, you were saying something.
No, very much. No, I think we are just wrapping up. So I said thank you very much for showing the film, and I'm glad we have a good response from the audience for the film.
Yeah.
And that's all. That's all I wanted to do. Thank you for having us.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you.
Thank you, Sudeep. Thank you, audience.
Thank you so much.
Father's Day.
Yes.
Enjoy. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. Bye.
Bye, Bharti.
Bye, ma'am.
Bye, ma'am.
Bye, Priya.
Bye, ma'am.
Bye, ma'am. Thank you.